I'm Dr. Rob Silverman. Let's talk about some modifiable risk factors for Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, without question, has taken the world by storm. There have been a whole bunch of quotes that really encapsulate the idea of Alzheimer's. We do all know someone who's lived from cancer, heart attack. We know nobody to date who's lived from Alzheimer's. That was Dr. Dale Bretson. So with that being said, let's talk about the modifiable factors and let's talk about some solutions to dim a lot of the symptoms. And let's create a better awareness of what the problems are with Alzheimer's and the path that people are on and need to address much earlier. So let's realize that 1/3 of the risk is preventable with lifestyle changes. I'll say that again. 1/3 of the risk of Alzheimer's is preventable. This was in the Lancet of December 2017 by changing your lifestyle. And I will really expand upon that in the next 15 to 20 minutes when we're talking about that, and I will share a lot of solutions with you. Modifiable risk factors. Number one, got to start the education early. So if I knew that I had parents that had Alzheimer's, which I don't, thank God, if I had that, I would without question be thinking about what can I do to avoid that. And the first thing you really want to do is look at your family history. And the second thing is it's a very easy test. You want to look for if you have the APOE4 allele. 23andMe have it. Many different lab tests have it. All doctors should be checking. About 15% of Americans have the APOE4 allele. If you have it, start now. If you don't have it, you still want to live a healthy lifestyle and you want to try and avoid all the symptoms and, of course, acquiring Alzheimer's. Hypertension also is an issue. So people that have higher blood pressure, that also poses a problem. You want that education early. Obesity in midlife. We now live in the era of diabetes, elevation of blood sugar. You know, diabetes type 3 has been called Alzheimer's. The idea of obesity of everybody in America, or the standard across America, is everybody's getting heavier. The idea of diabetes is the prodigious, unfortunate increase between diabetes and obesity. We've now coupled together and called it diabetes. So we want to watch our body weight. We want to watch our body composition. We try not to get everybody to be obese. Obesity is a leader towards overall inflammation. And as you'll see, many of the different issues, Alzheimer's, of course, being one of them, is the body's response to an inflammatory state. Also, smoking and physical inactivity later in life. Nobody should smoke. It's just that simple. I tell everybody every week, please adhere to 2 specific things. Number one, my GPS, no gluten, no processed food, and no sugar. And take care of your DNA. No dairy, no nicotine, no smoking, no artificial sweeteners. Musculoskeletal injuries heal much slower if people smoke. Rotator cuff just came out last week as an aside that if you smoked, you're not going to have this. I think it was a 50% decrease outcome from rotator cuff surgeries and treatment post-surgery if you smoke. So no smoking. Let's go through these again. We want education in the early life. So we want to teach people how to live a healthier lifestyle. I think America's leading and living a unhealthier lifestyle, generally speaking. Hypertension, you want to avoid the high blood pressure. Obesity in the midlife, let's get our body weight, get our blood sugar down, and no smoking and physical inactivity. This is all from the Lancet last year, about a year ago, December 2017. What I find most interesting about Alzheimer's is that 60 to 70% of Alzheimer's patients are women. Wow, almost 70% of Alzheimer's patients are women. So I always say when I lecture, what's the difference between men and women? And I'm not trying to be funny when I say that. When you really think about it, some of the bigger reasons, so let's look at from the waist down. From the waist down, women have an equal amount of muscle per pound. So they're equally as strong per pound as men. The difference is the pelvis is a little wider. When their pelvis is a little wider, they're more susceptible and they have a larger, what we call Q angle, and that's why they have these ACL injuries. What I'm doing is mimicking lateral force to the knee to make the knees couple in. Upper body, they are more susceptible to concussion. Why? Less muscle mass per pound, not equal amount, more of a head whip. More of a head whip leads them down a path of more of a concussion. There's a point to all this. What else is different? Estrogen and testosterone. Women are more estrogen, progesterone based. Men are more testosterone based. With all that being said, you're going to find out this change in hormones in these different estrogen receptor sites are going to lead down a path that allow women to have a higher incidence of Alzheimer's. Women with an MCI, mild cognitive impairment, decline faster than men that have that same mild cognitive impairment. So just understand, loss of memory may be deemed as a mild cognitive impairment. Potential female risk factors. A couple of the risk factors, interestingly enough, are the loss of ovaries, hypertensive complications during pregnancy. That's another thing. Women get pregnant and men don't. Number of pregnancies. The higher number of pregnancies, the higher incidence that you may get of Alzheimer's. And evidence, and this is the big one, you may not be able to see this, evidence that the microglial cells are different. What did I just say? Microglial cells. Microglial cells are specialized cells that are in the central nervous system. The central nervous system incorporates both the spinal cord and the brain. So the microglial cells are essentially what we call or are likened to macrophages. Macrophages are the captain of inflammation in your body or in the periphery of your body. They are like your microglial cells in your central nervous system. So they determine how much inflammation. So what we found out that microglial cells in women function differently than men, in that because of these estrogen receptor sites, huge takeaway here, because of these estrogen receptor sites, women are more, when it comes to injury or under attack, more pro-inflammatory, where men are more anti-inflammatory, leading down a path that a higher incidence of women can get Alzheimer's than men. It's not a women condition, it's just they're a little bit more susceptible. There are these differences. It's a fascinating thing when you think about it, and when you guys can come to a couple of my seminars, spend a little bit more time, and we really break down what these microglial cells will do. It's exciting for me because the science is there, and now that we know it, maybe we can start helping more and more people, but women are at that disadvantage, unfortunately. So with all that being said, let me talk about some solutions so we can dim the symptomology and maybe do some prevention of some of the onslaught of Alzheimer's. So here we go. Number one, we talked about lifestyle changes. I wanted to expand upon that a little bit. Exercise being the first one. Well, number one, let's talk about exercise. 15,000 steps a day. Let's get moving. I mean, everybody should get moving. If you can't find 20 minutes in a day to exercise, give me a call. You should be able to do that. The 15,000 steps is a great idea. Big proponent also of trying to do some weight resistance, because we do some weight resistance, we hold on to muscle mass, especially as we age. Women especially, past 50 need to do some weight resistance. No, they don't need to go to the gym and get a barbell above their head or something like that. You have your own body weight for weight resistance. 1998 study, Tufts University said the first sign of aging was sarcopenia, the loss of muscle mass. So we want to exercise. It's great for women, exercising a muscle mass to hold off osteoporosis, and it's equally important for men. So some form of weight resistance in that exercise. To help with the symptomology and to help avoid some of the Alzheimer's, there's the ketogenic diet. And here is where I'm going to really recommend, I think the best bang for the buck for brain health is going to be the ketogenic diet. Very low carbohydrates. Your brain is 60% fat. So I don't know where everybody got this idea to feed it carbohydrates. 60% fat. The ketogenic diet is approximately calorically, percentage-wise, 75% fat, 20% protein, 5% carbohydrates. So these low carbohydrates and this good quality fuel. So when I say keto, I'm a big proponent of clean keto versus dirty keto. Dirty keto is, some of these sausages I'm not really crazy about, obviously donuts and French fries, which are trans fatty acids. I'm looking for more good quality fats. Good quality fats like avocado, coconut, olives, fish fats, nut fats, raw nut fats, etc. So the keto is a great choice. Now, the reason the keto is a great choice, it makes ketone bodies. Ketone bodies can feed the brain. They're a much better source of feeding the brain than carbohydrates. 3 ketone bodies are made when you're in the ketogenic diet and you're in ketosis. Acetate, acetoacetate, and beta-hydroxybutyrate. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, as everybody's heard me say, is the gold medal winner for the ketogenic diet, and this one functions great with the brain because it allows for the stimulation of glutathione, the body's #1 antioxidant, and also master antioxidant. It also stimulates the NRF2 pathway, which is a very major antioxidant pathway. Also, ketone bodies versus carbohydrates allow for 22% more ATP. ATP, mitochondria in the brain, #1 spot where the mitochondria is in the body is in the brain, 22% more ATP, meaning much more energy, a much more efficient source, and ketone bodies are anti-inflammatory. So I'm a big proponent of a low carbohydrate, high fat diet for somebody who is concerned about Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases. Intermittent fasting, we could call it intermittent fasting or time restrictive feeding. So normally, if it's a regular patient, just for good body composition and to allow for what we call autophagy. Autophagy won a 2016 Nobel Prize, or they won a Nobel Prize about the discussion of autophagy. It's your cells' ability to clean themselves. They do so when you're not constantly feeding yourself. So for most of my patients, the intermittent fast time restrictive feeding is 12 hours of no eating and 12-hour window to eat. If you've got that APOE4 allele or you're really concerned about neurodegenerative disease, you should be fasting for 16 hours and eating for 8 hours. So the intermittent fast with the ketogenic diet really doubles down on the concept of autophagy. Great idea. In addition, we always want to remove inflammation. So part of the ketogenic diet and the clean keto is by removing inflammation. We don't want inflammatory foods. Inflammatory foods, as I said before, are gluten and sugar and other processed foods. They become very, very inflammatory. We want to manage and modulate inflammation so we allow the body not to break down and start to plaque. In addition, I'm a big proponent of healing the gut. Now, we could stay hours and hours here healing the gut. What's fascinating about the gut is 80% of your immune cells are in your gut. It's where your macro and micronutrients are. Your gut communicates with your brain. So any of these neurodegenerative diseases that we all talk about, brain disease, there is a gut component. So we want to heal the gut. If you want more information, I have now a 7R action plan. If you ask about it, Stephanie behind the camera, she's right there, she's smiling at me, she's going, no, don't give me any more work, I need the rest of the day off. We'll be very happy to share the plan, and you can download it. It's usable for you, and if you need any help with it, feel free to give me a call. But healing the gut is a critical element, because if our gut is too permeable, we get a lot of autoimmunity. And again, the gut and the brain are bidirectional. Gut to brain, brain to gut. Now, here's one of those breakthroughs that we always talked about. We talked about the microglial cells. How do they get stimulated? Well, they actually get stimulated from the conversation in the gut. So if you have a little what we call unleveling of bacteria, good and bad bacteria, dysbiosis, your gut senses it via your vagus nerve, stimulates something inside your gut called toll-like receptors 2 and 4, and that's what communicates with your microglial cells, putting you down that deleterious path and damaging your central nervous system in your brain, making you what? More susceptible to Alzheimer's. So I took a pause. Really exciting, really a lot of fun. So we really want to remove inflammation, a lot of inflammation, by healing the gut. I can't emphasize this enough. So the other thing that I recommend a lot is non-thermal low-level laser. I've been using it a lot in my office. A lot of good literature on the laser in its ability to decrease NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B is the signal transducer of inflammation in the body. So if we can decrease inflammation in the brain, we're going to have a healthier brain, and we're going to avoid some of the neurodegenerative diseases. So one of the bigger things that I use is a laser. I use an FX635 in my office. Found that to be very effective for any kind of brain injuries or just overall healing of the brain. It's also got FDA clearances for decreased pain and increased range of motion. I think that Norman Deutsch spoke about it real well in the book called A Brain's Way of Healing. In chapter 4, he really talked about lasering the brain and the outcomes it could come. Deutsch is a very well-known medical doctor. So I'm a big proponent of low-level laser for the brain, and Alzheimer's, concussion, and the like. In addition, I just mentioned concussion. Here's something that everybody would need to know. When you have a concussion, there's something that's called exotoxicity. There's a release of glutamate. Glutamate should not be released in an abundance. When it is, it changes the dynamic of some of the minerals or electrolytes, and calcium now is allowed because there's an open channel to go in the brain. When calcium goes in the brain through this open channel, there's a plaquing. Those plaquing are tau tangles, which is leading you down a path of Alzheimer's. It's also a releasing of potassium. So some of the things that you would want to do to blunt glutamate would be, I would strongly recommend something like Pinocchio and taurine to block glutamate and to heal the brain via low-level laser. What supplements do I recommend for the symptomology and really good for brain health? Well, the best thing that I didn't put up here for brain health is magnesium, which I'm going to go into vast detail right over here, MG. So here are some of the supplements. Number one, anytime you take a vitamin or a B vitamin, you want it methylated. You want it with a methyl group. So I'm a big proponent of methylated B vitamins. In addition, what we found out that, and this is taken again from Bretson's and modified a little bit, Bretson's Recode protocol, vitamin C, D, E, and K2, resveratrol, acetyl-L-carnitine. Acetyl-L-carnitine works synergistically with the ketogenic diet because it allows for an uncoupling protein. It's opening up the membrane and allowing these ketone bodies to get in. It also takes triglycerides. It's the only thing that takes fatty acids to the inner layer of the mitochondria, something like a triglyceride. And omega-3 fatty acids. I think that people know they're supposed to take omega-3s. We love that great new triglyceride form made by Biotics. Big breakthrough for them. Love it, love it, love it. If you need it, give me a buzz. Curcumin, which is anti-inflammatory and also increases antioxidants. Specialized pro-resolving mediators. Specialized pro-resolving mediators allow for the resolution of inflammation. In addition to the resolution of inflammation, they have been shown to change the brain's position on inflammation. So I would strongly recommend getting some SPMs in addition to some of the omega-3s and magnesium. The form of magnesium that I recommend is magnesium L-threonate. Studied September 2016, published MIT. What they found out, 2 grams of magnesium L-threonate enables you to decrease brain aging by 9 to 14 years. It's also shown to decrease the incidence of Alzheimer's in that study by about 80%, especially have the APOE4 allele. I know we got a whole bunch of questions and some shout outs. Steph, tell me who I need to say hello to.
So Janet Dewell.
Hey Janet.
Says interesting.
Thank you, Janet. I appreciate it. That's interesting. A lot more to come. We're trying to keep them in within 15 minutes.
Claudia Keyworth wants to know if this is recorded.
Claudia, this is recorded. It is live, but it is also Memorex. It will be on my Facebook, so you can share it with all those NFL people, and feel free to reach out to me. I will share the protocol in detail with you.
And then we have a question. How many treatments on the laser for neurodegeneration brain issues like Alzheimer's?
Great. So for the laser, we like to usually make a recommendation of at least 8 visits to see where we can go with the neurodegenerative disease. That's empirical research. I'm not claiming any FDA clearances there. Those are empirical researches that we found in the offices and many different doctors' offices. It's a great method to decrease inflammation in the brain, non-invasive, non-thermal.
Okay. Can you repeat the test for the Alzheimer's?
Sure. I'd love to repeat the test for the Alzheimer's. A couple of tests. The number one thing you want to do if you have a predisposition for it is the APOE4 allele. So you can do that in many of the different labs. Now, interestingly enough, some new literature has come out to say, well, what are some of the other precursors that, even if I don't have the APOE4 allele, would happen? Well, number one, the breaking of the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier, which has the same protein as the gut barrier. Remember when we talked about the gut-to-brain axis? Poses a problem. Use a lot of Cyrex tests, Cyrex 20 for that. Great choice there. In addition, there are some other inflammatory tests that we can take a look at to see that if inflammation is up, something like a C-reactive protein. But you can make the statement that the damage to the blood-brain barrier is the first sign of Alzheimer's. So those are a couple of the tests. Don't forget, you probably also should test for the gut and gut permeability.
Okay. Which 3 to 5 supplements are critical for symptoms of Alzheimer's? Okay, so my top 3 to 5 out of this list. Well, let's go. Well, number one, interesting, I would have to say number one is going to be omega-3s, that triglyceride form biotics. Number two, I'm going to go SPMs, specialized pro-resolving mediators, are a great choice. I'm also going to say magnesium L-threonate. I'm going to go to curcumin, and something I didn't put up that's in the ketogenic diet, medium chain triglycerides, or MCT oil. Make sure your MCT oil is C8 and C10. That's correct, and it comes from coconut oil and not palm oil. Okay, and where is your next presentation?
My next presentation is next week. I am lecturing for Aconia. I am out in Thousand Oaks, California. Yes, I'm getting out of the cold in New York, going out there. We're going to have a great presentation. It's the last presentation of the year. And I know somebody else had asked, where can they get a lot of information on the gut-to-brain axis? You can see me at Integrative Health Symposium on February 23rd, Saturday morning. I am doing a whole leading edge lecture on the microbiota and gut-to-brain axis in health and disease. That is in New York City.
Okay, one last shout out from Brooke Gorman. She says, hi, Dr. Rob. Great info once again.
Hey, Brooke. Big shout out. Guys, we're ending the year. Don't forget. End the year on health. I know it's that time of year where a lot of people can't watch their diet, but unfortunately don't put on that holiday 10. It's kind of like the freshman 15. We want to avoid it. Remember, health is wealth, and if you want to share it with your friends and you want to share it with your family, you need to take care of yourself. This is a major thing that many people are discussing. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd love you to all to like, comment, share what we just did. A lot of people are concerned about it. We've all lost a loved one from this. So, I'm here for you. In addition, we're doing a lot of videos on Instagram. It's Dr. Robert Silverman, just like that. And also, we do a lot of YouTube. So Stephanie wants me to say Dr. Robert Silverman. We have a lot of chiropractic and functional medicine, nutrition. Again, if anybody needs anything, feel free. Every Tuesday, Facebook Live, 2 o'clock, Dr. Rob. Always yours in health.